Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our interview session with faith leaders, gender diverse faith leaders specifically. I'm so glad to be joined by Lynn Young today. Lynn, would you please introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, your name, your pronouns, anything you'd like to share?
Sure. My name is Lynn Young. I identify gender-wise as Two-Spirit, which is an ancient indigenous non-binary identity. I'm in a long-term relationship with a woman, so sexually lesbian, I suppose. And some of the ways in which I show up in spiritually identify as Native American traditionalist and Christian also. I'm a licensed Christian pastor at a United Church of Christ. And one amazing thing about the whole business of working there is that they know that I walk a blended path of Native American and Christian. They're totally cool with that. They know about all of my identities, and that's why they love me. So it's not anything I ever have to suppress or anything. So that's amazing. Pronouns: Z, zir, and zirs. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Will you tell us a little bit about your journey to coming to understand your Two-Spirit identity?
I was 39 years old when I came out to myself and my family and divorced the husband that I had been with and stepped into my authentic life. And it was the most terrifying and amazing thing to do. So that, I stepped into like a lesbian identity at that point. And about a year later is when I found out that I was Native American by heritage. My mother had been adopted and did not know what was behind her genetically and never wanted to know. Mm-hmm. And after she passed, I discovered that and started exploring the culture and history of my people. As soon as I began to really explore everything I heard, all the different ways of expressing spirituality was like, yes, yes, and yes.
Could you talk a little bit about learning more about how you express your gender and how gender, you come from a specific tribe and tradition, and so therefore not all Native American folks are the same and not all Two-Spirit folks are the same. But can you talk a little bit about gender differences in Two-Spirit communities today?
Sure. As I began to really embrace two-spiritedness as my way of being in the world, I did meet other folks, and we are also very different. I've met people who are Two-Spirit and they are high femme. I've met people who are Two-Spirit trans folks who are who express, male or female or somewhere in between, whatever. And I just realized that whatever feels like home is what a person does. And for me, I am most comfortable, like if I want to dress up and look and feel good, I wear menswear. Mm-hmm. That's what they call it, because people ask me, well, why do you wear men's clothing? And I got a great piece of wisdom from comedian Eddie Izzard, who expressed that it's not men's clothing, it's my clothing, I bought it. Mm-hmm. So anytime there's anything ceremonial, we dress in our regalia. And so like for going to powwow or going to ceremony, we wear our regalia. And as I embraced my Two-Spirit identity, I had to really intentionally look and make a choice about my regalia, because everything I had up until then, I'd been, practicing Native spirituality and Native traditional dance, etc., for probably 13 years at that point. And that was all very woman's traditional is the name of the style. And so that's what I was doing. I had a buckskin dress. I had a beautiful woodland outfit with a cape shirt and a long ribbon worked skirt and all that. And it's beautiful and I still have it and I love it, but it's just not who I am. So I had to really sit back and go, okay, so who are you? If you're going to make Two-Spirit regalia, what does that look like? Mm. Well, for me, it looked like making an absolutely fabulous ribbon shirt, which ribbon shirts are worn by men and women both. And then instead of putting a skirt with that, I wear black jeans, moccasins, but I also carry a woman's fan and shawl.
Mhm.
So I bring all of that I am into the dance arena or into ceremony, and my intertribal group that I work with, that I do ceremony with, totally embrace that. And there is this negotiation. Anytime I go to like a powwow, there's the hierarchy of how things work at a powwow is there's an arena director, and then there's a head male dancer, and a head female dancer.
Mm.
So first, when I go to a powwow, I go and talk to the arena director, and he directs me. It's usually he directs me to the head man and head woman dancer, and I explain who I am and why I'm expressing the way I am. And I've never been told you can't dress like that and dance.
That's so wonderful. That's so great.
It was wonderful and scary.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the first time that you did that, I'm sure it was pretty scary to
It
try to do
was.
something different. So it sounds like dance is a really important part of like your particular spiritual expression and tradition. And I'm wondering if there are other specific spiritual practices that you found very helpful in understanding your two-spirit identity.
Absolutely. One of those would be drumming. In native circles, a lot of people have drums and have and do drumming. Some people only drum like with a group. There is like at a powwow, when you see these great big drums, there's like 10 or 12, 15 people, usually all men, sitting around playing the drum together and singing the traditional songs. And that's the rhythm and then the song to which the people dance. The first time someone handed a drum to me, I was sitting around a fire at a historical reenactment. My wife and I used to do that. And we were sitting around a fire one evening talking, and my one friend just walked up, and she, over my shoulder, handed me this frame drum and said, I was told that you need this. And from that moment, when I drummed that drum the first time, it was like, oh my gosh, I've got to make myself a drum. And so I did. And the first drum I made was in 2005, and I can't stop. I have got a ton of drums of my own, and I've also gone around and done drum making workshops with folks. The one that was the most humbling and still like makes me trembly inside was when a local group of Miami folks, they asked if I would come down to their annual game and teach their elders how to make drums, because the way that they were raised because of colonialism, they didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so here I was, this mixed blood person, and I came in and I taught these elders how to make drums for themselves. And it was I've got goosebumps right now. Mm. It was the most amazing experience. They were so grateful, and it was an otherworldly experience. I felt like I could have easily have just been, sitting in a 200 years ago and working with elders around the same kind of task. It was just absolutely amazing. That's and so drumming is very important to me. Drumming and drum making just is incredibly important to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it speaks to how many Native folks have had to relearn their traditions, because like your mother was adopted, and so she lost that tradition because of the adoption. And a lot of people, I'm up in Minnesota, and we have a history of schools where children were taken away from their family and put into schools to teach them, to take away their culture. And so a lot of Native folks that I know are trying to relearn things that were lost.
Most tribes have traditions around naming. That you have a name that you're given when you're born, and it's more than likely an Anglo name. But then as you grow and you develop in a traditional spiritual group, you're given a name usually at some point in your teens or whatever. And then when you really like fully come into your true self, then if you're feeling that tug, you can ask a pipe carrier to pray for your name. Because the concept is that the moment you were conceived, Creator gave you your name.
Mhm.
and you're the only one who bears that name, and that it doesn't get spoken aloud to anyone. So when you are ready, if you ask a pipe carrier to pray on that and ask for your name to be given, um, Creator will, in the fullness of time, however long that takes. For me, it took 4 years, and the pipe carrier will be given your name. So in my circle, I've seen lots and lots and lots of people named.
Mm.
And everyone that's been female body that I have ever seen get named in this group, the last part of their name was Kwe, which is QWE or KWE, either way. But it means woman. So I've got friends that are Northern Lights woman, swooping down woman, able to look at the sun woman, all these different people whose last identifier on their indigenous name is woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then men may or may not have one that's men, but the women always get Kwe. It's just all I've ever seen, all I've ever known. So when I prayed on my name, I just sat back, and part of me just like lifted up prayers to Creator that, please send me my name, but wow, I hope it doesn't end in Kwe. That's not really who I am. So when the pipe carrier told me that you need to start preparing because I found your name and you'll be given your name at spring ceremonies. When I was named, I was given a name that breaks down to someone who feels the heartbeat of the Earth Mother with no gender identifier whatsoever.
Wow.
And it's 19 syllables long, and it was one of those things that many of my friends have their name written on a card, like in their pocket for ceremony, so they can, because they're long and in another tongue, so you can't. A lot of people can't remember theirs, but from the moment I got mine, I've never forgotten it. And
That's amazing.
I'll share it here. I think it's a sacred space that I can do that. This is in Potawatomi.
Mm-hmm.
Is Wiana Nuendwad Dapinmad Jishkani Wanijanid. And that means someone who hears the heartbeat of the Earth Mother.
That is amazing. That's wonderful.
It
Thank you for
really
sharing
is.
that with us.
You're welcome. And I think it's important because even these people who I'm in community with, they had never had to deal with a non-binary Native person before.
Mm-hmm.
There were plenty of folks that were, gay or bi, and that wasn't, gay, lesbian, bi, whatever, trans. That's never been a thing because you end up landing in one of those binary slots that colonialism said you got to have.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the first, that doesn't work for me person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they leaned into the difficulty, and they held my hand and they leaned in with me, and we figured it out together, and they knew who I was and they recognized me for who I am, as opposed to, I'm sorry, these are the only ways we understand. Mm-hmm. And that was a beautiful thing.
Well, the last question I want to ask you is, a lot of the folks that we work with, the gender spectrum, are youth, they're young people, usually teenagers, who are figuring out their gender identity and their sexuality a lot of times, and just who they are, right? And some of them maybe are Native and they know it, or maybe they're Native and they would like to know more about their ancestry because they don't know much about it yet. What was a resource, or what is a resource that you would recommend to people, to teenagers especially, who want to learn more about being Two-Spirit?
What I would advise folks, particularly youth, would be to try to identify what indigenous groups might be active in your area. If I didn't have this incredible intertribal group that I'm a part of, I wouldn't have been able to have access to my culture. So I would have had to just learn in books and stuff, which isn't a bad thing, but it is absolutely invaluable to find a group or find an elder that you can talk with and you can learn literally at their knee, as used to be done via oral tradition. But finding an individual or a group will be very helpful. And don't feel like if you know that you're Cherokee or you suspect that you are, don't feel like that's what you have to find. If I had stuck with, I have to find Lakota people as I'm living in Indiana, that's a little harder. Whereas I just happened to be introduced to this group, invited to a gathering, and it's a wonderful mix of Miami and Odawa and Cherokee and Potawatomi. There's a few Lakota folks, and so by being with all these folks, you hear all these different teachings, and you have an opportunity to explore those and to hear those and reflect on them and see what rings true. You'll have things that sound like, oh my gosh, yes, that's totally who I am, and other things that maybe aren't for you, and that's fine. You can just let them pass and go on to whoever it is that needs them. But finding a personal connection is really the best way. And if people feel like they're really stuck, hey, I'm in X location and I just can't find any resources, I literally am, opening myself up and saying, shoot me an email and I will see if I can help you. I know a lot of people around the country, all the different activism stuff that I've done, that I may not know someone in your area, but I'm sure I know someone who can say, hey, check out this resource, because there are a lot of them out there.
That's wonderful. Well, if it's all right with you, then we'll put your contact information in the info for the video, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking with us, Lynn. This was really cool. We all really appreciate it. And I'm excited to see people talking more about Native identities and Two-Spirit identities. And so just thank you for sharing that with us today.
You're welcome, Miigwech. Thank you.